everybody. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Ready to go with a short week here. It is a 4-day week coming off the long weekend of February. Some provinces celebrating Family Day. It was Louis Riel Day in at least Manitoba. And whatever you were celebrating, I hope you had a great time. And I really think we need to find a way to get people to a 4-day work week. It would be so much better in so many ways for so many people. And, you know, businesses, if you could just take a couple of minutes and think, how can we make our employees more productive? 4-day work week. How can we save a little bit of money? 4-day work week. There's all kinds of different ways to do it, and I really hope that we get there. But beyond the long weekend, there is a lot of things to celebrate. First off, it is Pancake Tuesday or Fat Tuesday or Shrove Tuesday. I assume if you're celebrating that, that means you are getting ready to observe Ash Wednesday tomorrow and the 40 days of Lent, which lead up to Easter. It's also the Lunar New Year. It is the beginning of Ramadan. There's a lot going on. Here in Southern Ontario, where I come to you from every single day, we're expecting one heck of a winter storm tomorrow. You know, it's too bad. We had a real nice weekend. A lot of melting got done, which is good. You can see the roads again. That's good news. Anytime we can do that in February in Canada. But now another winter storm is on the way. This is going to bring a lot of ice buildup from freezing rain, and it's going to bring a lot of snow on top of that. So I'm thinking tomorrow is going to be kind of a write-off if you've got to go anywhere. I would think that schools are probably going to be closed tomorrow, but we'll wait and see. Sometimes those school boards make questionable decisions. If it's as bad as they say it is going to be, though, I'm fully expecting tomorrow is going to be another quiet day. Did you watch any of the Olympics this weekend? Canada is not doing as well as we were projected to do. As I record right now, and we do have a shot at more medals today, only 11 so far, and only 2 of them are gold. A lot of people figured Canada would be a lot further along. There is reason to think we are going to have more medals coming for sure in women's hockey. We're playing for gold on Thursday. The women's team is going to take on Team USA. And if the men's gold medal game were to happen today, based on the standings, it would also be the men playing the Americans for gold there as well. It kind of sets up some nice drama, doesn't it? It's a great time. Good for sports. It's good for a lot of different things. Here's hoping that you've got something good to distract you from the news, because the news is not all that good right now. Although I do want to take a minute before I get into today's pod and really get into the content, just to, again, follow up on something that I did last week. When I heard our leaders, Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre in particular, stand up in the House of Commons and make their remarks about the tragedy in Tumbler Ridge, I was quite proud of how our parliamentarians handled that. Well, when it got to the candlelight vigil that was held in Tumbler Ridge, I don't think I've ever seen a scenario where the head of government, Mark Carney, the head of state, the Governor General, Mary Simon, and the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition, Pierre Poilievre, all stood holding hands for one common cause. I don't think I've ever seen that kind of unity from our leaders here in Canada. And I'll be honest with you, it made me proud. Regardless of how you feel about Mark Carney, regardless of how you feel about Pierre Poilievre, I think that was a moment where they recognized that was bigger than them. They were there to support regular Canadians, and it was very, very nice to see that get done. So job well done to everybody who planned that out. I thought it was a nice sign of unity in a horrible time here in Canada. That Tumbler Ridge shooting is still on my mind. It's been bugging me for days now, and man, if you're one of my listeners in British Columbia, I assume you feel it a little bit more than those of us further away from BC, but I've been thinking about you and those families all weekend long. Hope you had a great weekend, everybody. In this episode of the pod, I'm going to try and cover a number of different things. We had some stuff come out of Queen's Park, that is the Ontario legislature, late last week. I'm going to talk about the changes to tuition that Doug Ford has made. A major financial hit to families is coming. I'm going to talk about that. I want to talk about more government waste, specifically in the city of Hamilton. What they did to build shelters for those who are unhoused is basically shameful. How badly they managed a project. And I'm going to fit that into this episode as well. I've also got lots on the Epstein files, and I'm going to try and get to a little bit of U.S. Secretary of State. Is that it? Yeah. U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. He gave a speech over in Europe this weekend that is basically being likened to a conservative version of the speech that Mark Carney gave in Davos to the World Economic Forum. He had some real interesting things to say about the quote unquote new world order. And if you give me about 40 minutes of your time today, maybe not even that much, I'm going to bring you a nice wrap on all the different things that happened this weekend. I want to start off by talking a little bit about someone who's in the news here in Canada, I feel like way more than she should be. The former Secretary of State, the former First Lady, Hillary Clinton. She was over at the same security conference in Munich that Marco Rubio was at. I'm going to play a little bit of that in just a few minutes. But first off, a new interview has dropped. It is Hillary Clinton talking to Jess Parker. And one of the things she says in this clip is absolutely astounding. Over the weekend, a ton of stuff came out about the Epstein files. I'm going to touch on a few things in particular in a few minutes. First off, here's Hillary Clinton denying any connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Listen to this.
Do you regret the links that there have been?
You know, we have no links. We have a very clear record that we've been willing to talk about, which my husband has said. He took some rides on the airplane for his charitable work. I don't recall ever meeting him.
Did you ever meet Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did on a few occasions, and thousands of people go to the Clinton Global Initiative. So it to me is not something that is really at the heart of what this matter is about. They are accused, and in both cases were convicted of horrific crimes against girls and women. That should be the focus.
First off, I agree with Hillary Clinton. That should be the focus. We should focus on getting the perpetrators. However, Hillary Clinton denying basically any knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein. She said she did meet Ghislaine Maxwell, but no connection there to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, that's just preposterous. They were at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. There are numerous occasions when Bill Clinton met Jeffrey Epstein. To think that Hillary Clinton had no contact with him is absolutely crazy. Seems to me she's trying to paint a picture before she goes in and gives her congressional testimony next week. Here's the rest of what Hillary Clinton had to say.
We are more than happy to say what we know, which is very limited and totally unrelated to their behavior or their crimes. And we want to do it in public because let's make this transparent.
There are calls for another individual who denies wrongdoing to go before Congress on this matter. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew. Do you think he should testify?
I think everybody should testify. Look,
including the former prince?
I think everybody should testify who is asked to testify. I just want it to be fair. I want everybody treated the same way. That's not true for my husband and me because other witnesses were asked to testify. They gave written statements under oath. We offered that. They want to pull us. Why do they want to pull us into this? To divert attention from President Trump. This is not complicated.
Wow. Well, it seems like the play is right there in front of us. That's going to be the play. Deny everything and try and deflect back on Donald Trump. I'm really still trying to get to the heart of what Donald Trump's involvement was with Jeffrey Epstein. There's some evidence that suggests he's the one who contacted the police and began the investigation. There's other stuff in the Epstein files that seem to suggest he's also a POS. So, I'm really not sure where it's going with Trump, but I also don't think there's any denying the Clintons were intimately involved with Jeffrey Epstein and some of the things that went on. President Trump flying back to Washington last night was asked about this during a news gaggle on Air Force One.
So Hillary Clinton said in an interview today that she and her husband are getting pulled into the Epstein matter to divert attention from you and that your administration has something to hide. What's your response to that?
I have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein was fighting that I don't get elected with some author, a sleazebag, by the way. And I've been totally exonerated. No, they're getting pulled in. And that's their problem. I don't know, they're going to have to see what happens. But I watched her in Munich, and she seriously has Trump derangement syndrome.
Do you think that she should publicly testify?
You know, I've been totally exonerated on Epstein. And it's really interesting because they've been pulled in. Think of it. They've been pulled in. Clinton and many other Democrats have been pulled in, yeah.
This is not a left versus right issue. And I don't know if I believe Donald Trump when he says he's been exonerated. That doesn't sound right to me. And frankly, I haven't seen much that would completely exonerate him anyway. He is certainly implicated in a number of very serious accusations. Some of the stuff that came out this weekend from the new file drop is absolutely gross, by the way. Some of the things they were doing is absolutely sick to women and girls. The way they were torturing them, the way they were using them, the way they talked about them. I mean, all of it was absolutely gross. Let me play just for you, before I get to more audio on this, a little bit of some past audio. Do you remember when Virginia Giuffre, she is the one who apparently was trafficked through numerous victims. No, they wouldn't be victims. They'd be perpetrators. She was the victim, trafficked through numerous men that Jeffrey Epstein had connections with, including, she says, former Prince Andrew. This is her when she was on 60 Minutes.
I was trafficked to a lot of types of different men. I was trafficked to other billionaires. I was trafficked to politicians, professors, even royalty. He used me as a form of blackmail. So, you know, these people would owe him favors. I was so utterly mortified. I was like, this guy's watching me go to the toilet. He's watching everything that happens in the massage room. He's watching in me in my bedroom. He's, you know, like everything's being recorded. And that's when I realized that's how he's getting away with blackmailing everybody. Biggest reason in my mind was because he wanted to always have something on someone just in case he needed it. Why it's important that the media and the government work hand in hand to try to uncover who was involved to the highest level of people in our government and even in international government.
That was several years ago. The accusations have been out there for a very long time. I mean, thank goodness that we're finally starting to learn more. But how did this go on as long as it did? How can we even right now carry on knowing that there have not been arrests? It doesn't make any sense. The people who did this really need to be held accountable. Here's another one. This one from CBS This Morning. When she was alive, Virginia Giuffre talking about Ghislaine Maxwell.
She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious. She was evil, and she was a woman.
Her lawyers have said Ghislaine Maxwell is not a Jeffrey Epstein, that she has been a victim of media spin.
They're doing their job, but I know that woman. I've known her really well. Put it this way. Epstein was Pinocchio, and she was Geppetto. She was the guy controlling
the strings.
Jeffrey. Yep, she was pulling the strings. She had his money. He had her contacts, but Ghislaine was much more conniving and smart than Epstein ever was.
How do we just carry on with life as normal, knowing what's in the Epstein files, corroborated by witnesses, and an investigation that's been going on for years? I just don't understand why people aren't more angry about this. Former Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, has left the FBI and gone back into private life. Didn't want to keep doing it, but he is doing his podcast again. He was recently talking about why there are so many redactions in the Epstein files. This is kind of interesting.
Disturbing case with a bunch of level 10 decisions where there's a shitty decision and a shittier one. Do we redact these four guys in a lineup, knowing people are going to speculate about, gosh, who were these four guys? Were they part of this ring? Were they part of a cabal of people? Or don't redact them and then, you know, innocent people get outed. These were the decisions that had to be dealt with every day. Shitty decisions and shittier ones. That's what President Trump has to deal with every single day of his life, and everyone else at that principal level. Everyone.
They're basically fluffing this off as, well, you know, there's really no ideal path. How about we just put everything out there and let's start getting in front of judges? Let's start finding out who should be in front of a grand jury. Let's start locking people up that did horrible things to women and girls and babies on top of that. I mean, the whole thing is sick, and the people who did it are still walking around. The Clintons, who are deeply involved in this, now denying that they even knew Epstein. That's what this is coming to. There's got to be arrests here. There really has to be. This is U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Well, we know he was on the plane, not only on the plane a couple times, multiple times. He traveled internationally with Jeffrey Epstein. And he was on the plane called the Lolita Express because it supposedly had a bed in there where Jeffrey Epstein had young girls. He has been a friend of his, a continuing friend of his for years and years. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who hasn't spoken to him in many years, over a decade, after he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago for bad behavior. So that's the difference there. And I think Americans see the two-tier justice system. But, you know, we don't know. They're saying Clinton has not been to his private island, but he has traveled all over the world with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know why AG Garland and the Justice Department are so quiet on this tonight. You know, they're out there labeling parents domestic terrorists, yet they're saying nothing about this. And these documents were so slow to come out. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business in this country, and Jeffrey Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years where she belongs. And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Mark Garagos, as a great criminal defense attorney, will back that up as well.
That was a little bit of Pam Bondi on Fox News, saying that Bill Clinton is mentioned 1,193 times in the Epstein files that have come out so far. By the way, there's a lot of folks who don't think all of the files have been released. I want to know where the video is, and I personally don't need to see it. But I want somebody who's neutral on this to look at those files, to give us a summary of what was done, and hopefully that will inspire some change and get some of these people who did these horrible things behind bars. One of the U.S. politicians who is fighting very hard to make sure that all of the files get released is Representative Nancy Mace. Here's her talking on the weekend.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, let's start with the very beginning. You've been very vocal on social media about your experience, what you saw as you were able to view some of those unredacted documents. This is the first week that this has been available for representatives like yourself to be able to go see some of that. You came away, though, with 11 names. Tell me a bit more about that experience and those names and why they stuck out to you.
Far more than that, actually. We're talking about witnesses, possible co-conspirators, possible participants, possible predators. I am accumulating a list of people that I would like to see the House Oversight Committee bring in for testimony. If they don't show up, then obviously I will support subpoenas for those individuals. But I walked away scratching my head. There's all this information, all this evidence, all these victims, and nobody's gone to jail. There's only one accomplice for thousands of victims, potentially. This was a global sex trafficking network. I can't even fathom that this is the modern era where women and underage girls are abused. And because you're rich and powerful, or maybe you have a title by your name, that you can get out of it. And those redacted documents are showing on the screen. Most members of Congress, we still can't see that information because it is still completely redacted. A lot of the information related to co-conspirators is still hidden from members of Congress. And by the way, when you go to show up at the DOJ, it's a tiny room. It's like the size of a closet with 4 computers in it for basically 535 members of Congress. It'll take us months, if not years, to look at this information that is unredacted, if you can find it.
This is a big problem. In releasing the files, they were supposed to make them accessible so that regular people could go through those files and try and understand what's in them, what people were up to. It's crazy that we still don't have that info. Tell you what, we've done a decent amount of American stuff, and there is still more to do, including some audio from Marco Rubio, former U.S. President Barack Obama, President Trump, and Hillary Clinton. More from all of them still to come in the pod. But let's bring it back home for a second here. There was some stuff that got announced at the end of last week that I want to get off my chest. Number one, in Ontario, Premier Doug Ford has announced he is going to keep the Crown Royal on the shelves at the LCBO, and he's going to do it because he somehow convinced Diageo to invest millions of dollars into various pet projects that the Premier seems to think are worthwhile. To me, that feels like a shakedown. I still want to know more, and I think there needs to be an investigation, if I'm being honest. If the people at Diageo don't start it, then I think somebody else needs to, into how this went down. There have been so many Canadians losing their jobs lately. Not a word from Doug Ford. Not the least of which, the federal civil service. Another 24,000 federal civil servants have been put on notice that their job may be on the line. That's 24,000 more families that aren't sure how they're going to make ends meet. You don't hear a word from Doug Ford about any of that. Nothing. But he was really hell-bent on Diageo, the Crown Royal Company, closing down one bottling plant in southwestern Ontario that affected about 200 jobs. Now, many of those jobs have been replaced by other area businesses, but not all. And it's good. The Premier should care about jobs in Ontario. I just don't understand the double standard. When the Premier doesn't comment on some job losses, but then he threatens a shakedown on others, it makes me wonder, is it personal? And did anybody gain anything personally from this? What is the Premier's obsession with Diageo closing that one bottling plant, whereas the Premier lets everything else go? I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And if you want to weigh in, maybe you've got a theory, slide into my DMs. Listener DM Friday is a day closer on this short work week at Scott Fox On Air on social media. What do you make of that situation? Because it feels very mobster. You want to close down those factories or that one factory? We're going to screw you hard. And then, okay, we'll keep the Crown Royal in the LCBO because they've agreed to invest millions of dollars into various pet projects. That's a weird one, and I really want to understand more about that. But frankly, that's not even the biggest issue that I'm concerned about when it comes to the Ontario government. Changes announced at the end of last week involving post-secondary. In Ontario, we've had a tuition freeze in effect for many, many years. A lot of people say it went on way too long. Well, now the Ontario government is lifting the tuition freeze. That means universities can raise their tuition 2% each year going forward. Okay, 2%, not a massive amount of money, but it's still tangible. It's still money that families and students hadn't budgeted for. And that tuition increase is going to kick in September. But there was another part of that announcement that's got me real concerned. It's regarding the Ontario Student Assistance Program, or OSAP. Until now, up to 80% of someone's student loan could be considered a grant. That would be for gifted students, those who get good grades, those who are going places. Up to 80% of your student loan could be rolled into a grant, meaning it's not repayable. The government is dropping that from 80% to 25%. And here's my problem with that. Maybe it's the right decision. It's certainly not the right decision right now. Raising tuition and then piling on, and I mean thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars per year, the amount of debt that students can take on. It makes post-secondary education even less attainable, and it's something that families hadn't budgeted for. You know, if the Premier had said, starting in 2030, we're going to roll that grant back from 80% to 25%, at least families could save a little bit. To do it with no notice is going to be a major financial hit. I talked to a number of people, including those at universities across Canada, through one of my other gigs that I do. I'm the commissioner of Canada's University Lacrosse League. I was talking to some in universities this weekend about it, and they said it's very simple what Doug Ford is doing. You're either going to be a have or you're going to be a have-not. And if you're a have, meaning you come from money, you'll be able to go to university. If you cannot, because you're not a have family, then you're going to go to trade school. And that's really all there is to it. They want people either going into university or into the trades, and that's all there is to it. If you don't have the money to be able to continue on with your post-secondary education, Doug Ford says you need to be a welder or an electrician or a plumber or a drywaller or whatever. That's what they're doing here. They're making post-secondary education nothing but a luxury that is only entitled to rich families. And this is actually happening in Ontario with no notice whatsoever. I think it's wrong. I can't believe that they're going ahead and doing this with no consultation and no express conversation with families, with students that are going to be going to college and university. Shocking that this is going on and it's not getting reported on very much. And, the universities will say, oh, this is great, good stuff, because they want the money. Well, hey, when you're looking for a job, if you don't have post-secondary on your resume, you might as well forget it for a lot of professions. What we're doing in Ontario is very, very simple. If you have the money, you're going to university, and we're not subsidizing much. If you don't have the money, trade school. That's what you're going to do. You're just going to go into the trades and you're going to build all the different pet projects that the government is running around the country saying that we're going to build. It's a dangerous game that we're playing here. It's a real slippery slope. And there's a lot of smart kids that don't necessarily have the money who are going to miss out on higher education because of these changes that were made, again, with absolutely no notice. I have a big problem with that. If anybody in the provincial government would like to talk to me about that, hey, slide into my DMs. Let's get you on the pod. You can sit across the desk from me right here. Tell me why the Ontario government feels right now is a good time to dramatically increase costs on families. That's what I would like to know. But that's not all that's on my mind today. There's another story that broke over, it was late last week. This one came out, and it comes from Hamilton, Ontario. City Council there says they're demanding answers after it was uncovered through an Auditor General's report that an initiative that the city took on to try and help out the unhoused has now gone horribly sideways. They decided they wanted to build a temporary shelter, but not a typical shelter that would be a lot of beds and food facilities and bathrooms and showers and stuff. Typical shelters are just the basics. It's a warm place to sleep. You can get cleaned up. You can get a meal and be on your way. That's how a typical shelter works. But there's been a big push lately to try and build some of these tiny home shelters. So in Hamilton, in the West Harbour area, the Hamilton City Council approved building one of these. They budgeted, was it $2.9 million, or just under $2.9 million, to build 40 of these little tiny homes. They're 8 feet wide by 20 feet long. You're not getting a lot here, but it's a safe place for someone to go where they can lock the door, where they can put their bag down, take a load off, get cleaned up, make themselves something to eat, and hopefully begin transitioning to more permanent housing. The concept is good, although it's very expensive. They were going to spend millions on this. Wouldn't you know that 2.9 or less that they were going to spend on this project went more than $5 million over budget. Now we're talking about almost $7 million for 40 of these little shacks. Works out to about $200,000 each. Many people are saying, geez, you could go to Home Depot and buy the kit for like $40,000. There's a lot of builders who would build you one for $25,000 to $30,000. We're paying almost $200,000 per shack. I'm saying shack because I can't think of another word for it, but that's basically what they are. Only 40 of them were built. So far, since they got built, 120 people have been helped. For $7 million, they were able to help 120 people. And of those 120 people, only 23 of them did it actually work for, where they're now transitioning to more stable housing. The amount of money that government wastes, and they don't seem to care. It drives me bananas. How many people are opening up the mail right now, looking at that property tax bill, and it's gone up again, because that's what they do. Cities have no idea how to live within their budgets. They have no idea how to stick to a budget and live within their means. That's what I meant to say. They just don't get it. A lot of our city politicians are very far left. They are terrible with our money. And when it comes time to vote in October, when municipal elections happen again, man, I hope people are paying attention, because we just can't keep going on like this. You know, we've almost gotten used to the federal government wasting our money. We've almost gotten used to the provincial government wasting our money. But when you see even the municipal governments blowing through cash like there's no tomorrow, they budgeted like $2.5 million for this project, and it went $5 million over budget. and there's no accountability. Nobody's going to get fired. It was just poor management. These people have no respect for our tax dollars. You know what we need is recall legislation to be able to get rid of a government that does not meet the objectives of the taxpayers, that isn't working for the people, that's just blowing through money. How does a project that's supposed to cost $2.5 million go $5 million over budget? How is that even possible without somebody stepping in and saying, hold on a second here, there's no more money coming? And you know what? If you want the rest of the money that we promised you, you're going to finish this project right now. Does nobody stand up to the vendors anymore? I truly don't know what to say. It's completely disgraceful. That's just one story, by the way, and that is out of Hamilton, Ontario. There's stories like this, though, in every city across Canada. We need to demand more accountability from our local politicians, and that starts with putting the right people in office. I'm going to move on here. I did say that I have some more American stuff that I want to play for you, and I think this is a good time to do it. Over the weekend, appearing at the security conference in Munich. Big conference. All the countries were invited. Canada was supposed to be there, but to his credit, Mark Carney canceled his trip over there because he went with Pierre Poilievre and Governor General Mary Simon out to British Columbia for the candlelight vigil on the weekend. No problem with that. We didn't need to be there. Based on how much the Prime Minister is spending on in-flight catering, which is a shocking number, by the way. Google it if you want to know more. I'm kind of glad he didn't go to that one. But the conference did go on nonetheless. Hillary Clinton was on a panel and got called out by one of the other speakers. Listen to this.
He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A lot of what has been done before to try to make sense of how difficult it is to restrain people who want unaccountable power. And none of us in this room, including all of us on this panel, would choose to live under a regime that was so unaccountable that it could act with impunity the way that Putin does, except that's who Trump is modeling himself after.
Well, first, I think you really don't like him.
You know, that is absolutely true. But I really, not only do I not like him, I don't like him because of what he's doing to the United States and the world. And I think you should take a hard look at it if you think that there is something good that will come out of it.
What I think Trump is doing in America, I think it is reaction for something for some policies that really went too far from the regular people, too far from reality. So, you know, we saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution.
Just want to interrupt for a second here. That is the Czech deputy prime minister that is calling out Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton making no secret about the fact she does not like that Donald Trump is withdrawing America from the New World Order. That's very much a left-leaning thing. They want the one world government. Trump pulling America out of that and trying to claim the Western Hemisphere as basically the Americas, not part of the one world government. Hillary Clinton has a big problem with that because that's contrary to what left-leaning governments have been working towards. Let's hear a little bit more of this.
We should try to learn to listen to each other and not to label the ideological opponent as the public enemy. We are here on the West, and let's respect ourselves in the differences we have. So I don't really like such a labeling as fascist. I think it's
there are fascists in the world.
Well, maybe there are, but
including in Europe.
I think there are. It ended some 70 or 80 years ago.
No, it hasn't.
Hopefully, you know, this is something I don't really like. That every day, every time I hear labeling someone as fascist or Nazist or whatever, I think we should calm down, because this is dividing the society. We are maybe you are smart people. I'm not as smart as you, but so we should try to learn to talk to each other again, because this is something that went too far. I don't want to I don't want to talk about the Ukraine because it's the whole day talks, important talks. I listened to President Zelensky, what he's saying, and he's got the horrible position. I'm not sure if Ukraine is able to use the military to beat Russia. That would be perfect. That would be perfect. But
how great is that from the Deputy Prime Minister of Czechia? That's very important. When we start labeling the people we disagree with horrible names, rather than just listening to them, hearing them out, and discussing an issue on its merit, we're already shutting down the conversation before we even have a conversation. By the way, in that same setting, Hillary Clinton basically admitted Trump is right.
I think we need to call it for what it is.
Secretary
There is a
Clinton.
legitimate reason to have a debate about things like migration. It went too far. It's been disruptive and destabilizing, and it needs to be fixed in a humane way with secure borders that don't torture and kill people.
Hillary Clinton admitting the migration plan went way, way too far. You know, that wasn't what they were saying, though, when they tore down the wall and let people that weren't supposed to be in America flood into America. For her to now say, it went too far. Well, how much longer were you going to let it go if somebody didn't get in the way and stop allowing these people to come in? Wild that it's still being debated like it is down in America. We're still having a problem with it here in Canada. Seems like we've kind of slowed down the amount of people coming to Canada, but there's still a ton of them. And the new one is declare asylum. If you can't get in the conventional way, claim you're a refugee. You'll get all the benefits, all the perks. You will get them until we get you out of the country. And by the way, we're not trying that hard to get you out of the country. Basically, if you don't want to leave, no one is going to arrest you and deport you. Yet. That might be coming. Let's switch up topics here. Over the weekend, former U.S. President Barack Obama doing a podcast. He got asked during a lightning round of questions about extraterrestrial life.
A couple questions here. Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
Huh. So he said aliens are real. And by the way, full disclosure, he has tried to walk that back since this clip went viral. But he said it very confidently. Let's hear it one more time.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51.
They're real. Aliens are real. And again, he's trying to walk that back, but this is not the first time Obama has been, what I estimate is probably very honest about aliens. Here he is many years ago on the Jimmy Kimmel Show.
If I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
If I was the president...
It was unlikely that I was going to be president.
The moment I was inaugurated, my hand it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and UFOs, and I'd go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do. The aliens won't let it happen. You reveal all their secrets. They exercise strict control over us.
Now, you know, there are a lot of people that are going to examine your facial expressions here, every twitch, everything, and say, and of course, so did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Was he being very literal, or was he joking? You be the judge. I don't quite know where to go with that one, but I mean, it sounds like this is a plausible thing. Sounds like they're trying to ease us into this sort of thing. Kind of like how they did with the Epstein files. They didn't just come out one day and say, oh, by the way, the entire world is being run by a network of billionaire pedophiles who eat kids. They never said that. They're gradually easing us into this so that it's not such a shock all at once. This is a good time to play a little bit of sports audio. There's a couple things that happened over the weekend that were very interesting. Michael Jordan, probably the greatest NBA player of all time. Sorry, LeBron fans, but it's true. He is an owner now in NASCAR. This weekend, his team won the Daytona 500.
Well, back in victory lane, Michael Jordan has made his way here. Sir, we talked before the race. 4 horses in it. You are a Daytona 500 champion. How does that sound?
I can't even believe it. Yeah, I mean, it was so gratifying. I mean, we had 4 guys that were really fighting, that was helping each other out. I mean, you never know how these races are going to end, right? It's like you just try to survive. And, I thought Riley did an unbelievable job by pushing at the end. That shows you what teamwork can really, really do. I mean, he doesn't get enough credit. He won't get enough credit, but we feel the love. We understand exactly what he did. And, I mean, we just hung in there all day. I mean, we great strategy by the team, and we gave ourselves a chance at the end. And, look, I'm ecstatic. I mean, I don't even know what to say. It feels like I won a championship, but until I get my ring, I won't even know.
All right, what size ring do you wear? Did you tell me?
Size 13.
Hey, happy early birthday.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
Michael Jordan is now a NASCAR champion as well. He's a basketball star. That was about NASCAR, but we actually can talk a little bit about basketball. Raptors Scotty Barnes at the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday.
Sure. We had a deep group here, coach as well. Colin, Brandon, AJ, Elijah, they were all here. So it was just a special moment. Special.
Yeah, absolutely. Toronto very well represented at the All-Star Game. Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes in the game. Head coach Darko Rajakovic coaching the world team. Here's him.
Well, we're going to spend a lot of time this night to break down the film. I'm just joking. Obviously, really proud of both Scotty and Brendan for making it to All-Star. I think both of them, they definitely deserve it, the way that they performed this year. So it's going to be fun seeing them out there, and we're going to have a little game plan for them as well.
You love to see it. Still with sports, let's keep going. Blue Jays spring training has officially begun. All of the players are now there. They play their first preseason game this Saturday against Philadelphia down in Dunedin. Here is head coach John Snyder talking about the impact of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
In my opinion, Vladdy's always been the guy in his whole time here. And when he came up, it was him, Bo, Cavan, right? The sons of the big leaguers. And when each guy kind of departs, I think it's cool that Vlad has been the one that's here, the one that we're building around. And I think that with anything, when you have relationships with people, with your friends, with your teammates, when those change, when those surroundings change, you probably see a little bit of a different version of the people that are still here. And I think it's, if anything, probably it allows Vlad to have a little bit of a louder voice. I think it allows him to be a little bit more free, because when you get so locked in with somebody day to day for 8, 9, 10 years, you kind of just have that as a norm. So I think it's an opportunity for Vlad to have a louder voice and really understand that this has been his team and it's going to continue to be his team.
Well, that's how it goes. It's Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s team, and frankly, I don't even disagree. Friends, I'm coming up to time here already. I can't believe how quickly this episode has flown by, but as always, trying to bring you as much content as I can and a lot more context than you certainly get from watching the mainstream media news. But there's stuff I haven't even gotten to yet. We have a new trade negotiator, someone who is going to be working with the Americans to try and save the Kuzma deal. And I don't know how well received this one is going to be. This is someone who advised the cabinet to invoke the Emergencies Act during the trucker convoy. I'm going to have to circle back on that later on this week. I also want to play for you a little bit of our Minister of Languages and Canadian Culture, Mark Miller. I'm not a huge fan of his politics, but I'm certainly aware of how smart he is. He did a podcast late last week. Let me play just a minute of this for you.
I think most Canadians, most Quebecers, most Canadians as well, have no interest in having a referendum, but we have a party at 39-40% in the PQ that has promised to hold a referendum, which means the unity of the country is at risk. That worries me. It should worry us. I don't think we're ready federally or prepared in a way that we should be for that. And we do have to let Quebecers decide in the provincial election themselves without too much interference with the federal government. But when it comes to the unity of the country, we need strong voices federally, and I thought I could do my share. That isn't the only reason. There's national unity issues in Alberta.
Which I would about Alberta, of course, an obvious one.
And the Prime Minister is concerned about that and addressing that. I just think that, we do need in this day and age people that do stand up federally and give Quebecers a choice as to where we want the nation to progress within a unified Canada, and I think I can provide that.
That was a little bit on national unity from a podcast called The Corner Booth. Well, Mark Miller is going to be talked about a lot in the coming days and weeks, mainly because of some of the committee testimony that he has been giving. He's blunt. Like I said, I don't agree with his politics, but I certainly can acknowledge he's a smart guy. This is him being asked a question about Bill C-11, one that I think everybody should be paying attention to.
Bill C-11, of course, as mentioned in your opening remarks, it was sold as not regulating user content. However, the CRTC has recently confirmed that it can, in fact, require algorithms to manipulate what Canadians see online, which ultimately would boil down to censorship if that were the case. It's exactly what Conservatives have warned about. It's exactly what Canadians have been very much concerned by. And so I'm just curious as to what you make of this then, now that the CRTC is willing to admit that they can, in fact, compel algorithms.
Well, this is first and foremost, Ms. Thomas, an issue when it comes to the ongoing work that the CRTC is doing in making sure that we are properly regulating platforms and specifically what the CRTC is currently seized with, which is making sure that people are providing Canadian content. This isn't about free speech. It isn't about telling people what to do. It's about making sure that we have a thriving broadcasting and a modern broadcasting system in a country like Canada, geographically situated, and making sure that we survive in a country that gets a lot from American culture.
So algorithms can, in fact, then result in speech censorship. What do you make of that? If algorithms are compelled, it means that people will be able to see certain content and not other content. That means certain content can be put into, some abyss somewhere where folks cannot access it, or they can post it, but then it'll automatically be hidden because of an algorithm. That's censorship. It's keeping some people from being able to say what they would like to say online, and it's keeping others from being able to see what they would like to be able to see or listen to online.
I think you and I think indeed this committee have seen what algorithms can do, and if they are manipulated, how the effect of that manipulation can have on the availability of content. I don't think there's any suggestion that the CRTC is going to suppress algorithms or suppress speech by making sure.
No, the government would do it. Cabinet would do it. Hey, that's just a little bit of that exchange, and that was with the Lethbridge Member of Parliament, Rachel Thomas. Hey, listen, this is an issue we got to talk about. The government basically wants to promote social cohesion. Social cohesion. And they want the bulk of the news that Canadians get fed to come from the CBC. They want to control algorithms to make sure that there's no dissension on social media. They basically want to have complete control over the narrative. We need to talk about that. Do we let these people decide what information we can see? Let's say, for example, you follow a particular influencer, political influencer on social media. Maybe it's this pod. The fact that if they didn't like the content coming out of this pod and felt this is contrary to promoting social cohesion, they could completely bury it so people wouldn't see it. I know that was done to me last year when this pod took off like a rocket. I know that they throttled me down. As soon as I started talking about Mark Carney last year, they throttled me down, and they've been suppressing me on some level for a while. I firmly believe that. Could they do that to others? Could they control what you do and don't see online? The simple answer is yes, absolutely. Like I said, this is an issue that we need to talk about more. I'm going to play more of that for you, likely in tomorrow's episode of Scott Fox After 9. So I hope you can check in. Last but certainly not least, I told you that over the weekend, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was at the security conference in Germany. And he gave what is basically America's response to Mark Carney's Davos speech. This is very interesting, and it's getting high praise from all political stripes. Listen to Secretary Rubio from this weekend.
That infamous wall
that had cleaved this nation into two came down, and with it an evil empire. And the East and West became one again. But the euphoria of this triumph led us to a dangerous delusion that we had entered, quote, the end of history, that every nation would now be a liberal democracy, that the ties formed by trade and by commerce alone would now replace nationhood, that the rules-based global order, an overused term, would now replace the national interest, and that we would now live in a world without borders where everyone became a citizen of the world. This was a foolish idea that ignored both human nature and it ignored the lessons of over 5,000 years of recorded human history. And it has cost us dearly. In this delusion, we embraced a dogmatic vision of free and unfettered trade, even as some nations protected their economies and subsidized their companies to systematically undercut ours, shuttering our plants, resulting in large parts of our societies being deindustrialized, shipping millions of working and middle-class jobs overseas, and handing control of our critical supply chains to both adversaries and rivals. We increasingly outsourced our sovereignty to international institutions while many nations invested in massive welfare states at the cost of maintaining the ability to defend themselves. This, even as other countries have invested in the most rapid military buildup in all of human history and have not hesitated to use hard power to pursue their own interests. To appease a climate cult, we have imposed energy policies on ourselves that are impoverishing our people, even as our competitors exploit oil and coal and natural gas and anything else, not just to power their economies, but to use as leverage against our own. And in a pursuit of a world without borders, we opened our doors to an unprecedented wave of mass migration that threatens the cohesion of our societies, the continuity of our culture, and the future of our people. We made these mistakes together. And now, together, we owe it to our people to face those facts and to move forward to rebuild. Under President Trump, the United States of America will once again take on the task of renewal and restoration, driven by a vision of a future as proud, as sovereign, and as vital as our civilization's past. And while we are prepared, if necessary, to do this alone, it is our preference and it is our hope to do this together with you, our friends here in Europe.
By the way, Secretary Rubio, who is speaking like a president, and in my estimation, he probably will be the next president of the United States. That's him laying out the counter narrative to what Mark Carney talked about in Davos. Mark Carney talked about trying to salvage a new world order, one without America, but he wants to maintain the rules-based order system with a whole bunch of middle powers that are all united but subservient to the superpowers. Secretary Rubio is saying it doesn't need to be that way. He's saying every country that wants to work with America is welcome to work with America, but you've got to get your house in order. You've got to make sure your borders are secure. You've got to put your people first. He didn't say this part, but he did talk about how there can't be censorship. You can't suppress people's rights and freedoms. He was calling for a new world order, which is basically America and Europe working together. But Europe's got to get its house in order. Let's hear just a little bit more of Secretary Rubio. This, again, his speech this weekend at the Munich Security Conference.
But together, our predecessors recognized that decline was a choice, and it was a choice they refused to make. This is what we did together once before, and this is what President Trump and the United States want to do again now, together with you. And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We do not seek to separate, but to revitalize an old friendship and renew the greatest civilization in human history. What we want is a reinvigorated alliance that recognizes that what has ailed our societies is not just a set of bad policies, but a malaise of hopelessness and complacency. An alliance is the alliance that we want is one that is not paralyzed into inaction by fear. Fear of climate change, fear of war, fear of technology. Instead, we want an alliance that boldly races into the future. And the only fear we have is the fear of the shame of not leaving our nations prouder, stronger, and wealthier for our children. An alliance ready to defend our people, to safeguard our interests, and to preserve the freedom of action that allows us to shape our own destiny. Not one that exists to operate a global welfare state and atone for the purported sins of past generations. An alliance that does not allow its power to be outsourced, constrained, or subordinated to systems beyond its control. One that does not depend on others for the critical necessities of its national life. And one that does not maintain the polite pretense that our way of life is just one among many, and that asks for permission before it acts. And above all, an alliance based on the recognition that we, the West, have inherited together. What we have inherited together is something that is unique and distinctive and irreplaceable. Because this, after all, is the very foundation of the transatlantic bond.
Again, Secretary Rubio got a standing ovation in Europe for a Republican talking about trying to restore what once was before things got real crazy with mass migration, the climate crisis, and so on and so forth. Really great speech. Highly recommended. I found it motivational. You can see the whole thing on YouTube or wherever you go to see things like that. Just search for Marco Rubio at the Munich Security Conference. The speech just under half an hour long. Friends, I'm sorry I went long today. I try and keep these episodes to about 45 minutes, but today there was a lot to do. I promise you that tomorrow we're going to talk more about Bill C-11 and whatever else comes up today in the next Scott Fox After 9. I appreciate your time. Have a great day. Be careful if you're going to be driving over the next 24 hours in Southern Ontario. Some terrible weather is coming your way, and whatever happens, we'll take it up tomorrow right here. Have a good one. I will leave you with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.